The shuttle touched down with a soft rumble, dust and leaves scattering around the landing gear. Viewership 6 was beautiful from space. Green forests, blue rivers, and skies painted with two suns. But to many in the galaxy, it was a cursed place, a place where ships landed but never lifted off again. Inside the shuttle, Cal Rennick wiped sweat from his forehead. He was not a soldier. He wasn't a captain or a scientist. He was just a systems technician, good with wires, repairs, and finding simple solutions to complicated problems. He didn't even want to come here, but the pay had been triple the normal rate. Now, he wasn't so sure it had been worth it. The crew stepped out one by one, scanning the area. 8 humans in total. Cal followed behind, his backpack full of tools swinging on his shoulder. The forest around them was silent, too silent. There were no birds, no insects, not even the sound of wind. "Set up camp here," Captain Ferris ordered. "No wandering off. This planet's marked high risk for a reason." The others got to work quickly. Drones flew up to scan the surroundings while small defense turrets were set at the edge of the clearing. Tents were unpacked. Cal helped connect the power units and set up the communication link. It was all routine, almost boring, but boredom didn't last. That night, as Cal sat near the small heater, checking sensor readings on his tablet, he noticed something strange. A red alert blinked in the corner of the screen. Motion detected, north perimeter. He looked up. The others were asleep, except for the guard on duty. Cal walked over quietly. "Hey, did you see anything out there?" he asked the guard. The man frowned. "No." "Why?" Cal showed him the alert. The guard adjusted his weapon and stared into the trees. "Could be a glitch, or a small animal." "Yeah, maybe," Cal said. But inside, he didn't feel so sure. The next morning, one of the crew was missing. Her name was Tasha. Her tent was empty, her gear still inside, her rifle untouched. They searched the forest nearby, but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of struggle. Just one thing. On a tree near the camp, a strange symbol had been burned into the bark. Sharp lines forming a triangle with a dot in the center. Captain Ferris didn't like it. "We leave at first light tomorrow," he ordered. "No splitting up." But it was already too late. That night, 2 more team members vanished. No noise, no warning, just gone. Cal couldn't sleep. He kept checking the sensors, setting up alarms, anything to feel safe. But even with all the tech, nothing caught the intruders. By morning, half the crew had vanished, and panic had started to spread. "What's doing this?" Cal asked the captain. "We don't know," Ferris replied, his voice tight. "But if we don't leave now, we're next." They rushed to the shuttle, hoping to escape. But the shuttle wouldn't power on. The engine core was missing, ripped out clean. Someone, or something, had taken it. That's when the whispers started. At first, Cal thought it was just his imagination. Then he heard them clearly. Voices. Low and strange. Not words, exactly, but sounds like breathing mixed with soft clicks. He turned around and saw movement in the trees. Shapes. Tall and fast. Ferris ordered everyone back to the camp. "Weapons ready. Form a circle." They waited through the night, but nothing came. Not directly. Cal saw flashes of motion at the edge of the clearing, eyes watching from the dark, and more symbols on the trees, as if they were being marked or surrounded. By dawn, only 3 humans were left. Captain Ferris, a soldier named Lee, and Calendar. Lee vanished next, during his watch. He'd been standing just 10 feet from Calendar. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone. Now it was only Cal and the captain. They didn't speak much. They just waited, holding rifles, scanning every shadow. Cal tried to stay calm, but inside, fear had turned to cold dread. Then Ferris made a decision. "We'll split up," he said. "If we both run in opposite directions, one of us might make it. Go east. Don't stop." Cal didn't like it, but he had no choice. They counted to 3 and ran. Branches whipped his face. Thorns tore at his sleeves. Cal ran like never before, breath ragged, lungs burning. Behind him, he heard a scream. The captain's voice. Then silence. He didn't look back. Cal kept running until his legs gave out. He collapsed near a fallen tree, panting, eyes wide. He was alone now, the last one, and he didn't know what was hunting him, only that they were still watching. From the trees, something moved. Cal woke up in the middle of the forest, heart pounding, breath short. The sky above was orange with the rising suns of Ferocious 6. His legs hurt, his arms were scratched, and his shirt was torn. But he was alive. He had no idea where he was. Around him were trees with strange shapes, twisting branches, glowing moss, and odd flower pods that opened and closed slowly like they were breathing. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Cal checked his wrist device. The screen was cracked, but the compass still worked. He picked a direction, south, and started walking. His backpack had only a small water pack, a toolkit, and a multi-use knife. No food, no weapon. As he walked, he remembered Captain Ferris's last scream. It echoed in his mind. The sound had been sharp, not just of fear, but of shock, like he'd seen something he didn't expect. Cal pushed the thought away. Thinking about it wouldn't help him survive. Hours passed. The forest seemed alive. Cal heard rustling above, soft clicks from the bushes, and now and then laughter, but not the human kind. It was light, high-pitched, and strange, like it didn't belong to a creature made of flesh. He wasn't alone. Suddenly, he heard footsteps, fast, light, and close. Cal dove behind a thick log, heart racing. He peeked over the side. Through the leaves, he saw them. They looked like women, tall, fast, and graceful. Their skin was a mix of deep gray and violet. They had markings on their faces and arms, like tribal paint. Long hair tied in braids with bone decorations. Their eyes glowed faintly, sharp and intelligent. One of them sniffed the air and spoke in a strange, musical language. Cal didn't move. They walked past, silently, their feet barely touching the ground. He counted 5 of them. All carried weapons, short blades shaped like claws and strange curved bows. These were the ones taking his team. He was sure of it. After they were gone, Cal waited. 10 minutes, then 20. Only when he was certain they were far away, he got up and started moving again, this time quieter, more carefully. He realized now, these weren't beasts. They were hunters, intelligent, fast, and highly trained. And they were tracking him. Cal began setting traps. He wasn't a soldier, but he was smart. He used vines, sharp rocks, and tree sap to create small alarms and tripwires. Nothing deadly, just enough to give him time if someone got too close. He made a fake path with footprints leading the wrong way. Then he climbed a tall tree and stayed there, hidden in the leaves. That night, they came again. He saw them move through the forest, checking the traps. One of them triggered a noise trap and froze. Another one spoke softly. Then they laughed, soft and eerie. They weren't angry. They were enjoying it. It wasn't just a hunt. It was a game to them. One of them walked right below his tree. Cal held his breath. She paused, tilted her head, and looked up, almost directly at him. But then she smiled, turned away, and vanished into the woods. Did she see him? The next morning, Cal knew something had changed. They were letting him live, watching how he survived. They could have caught him many times already, but they didn't. Why? He found an old structure deep in the forest, made of stone, covered in moss and vines. It looked like a temple or a shrine. Inside, he found something strange. Carvings on the wall. Drawings of tall alien women like the ones chasing him, surrounding a figure that looked smaller, weaker, different. A human. Next to it, there was a symbol, 3 lines crossing in a star shape. It matched the marks he'd seen burned into the trees near the camp. They weren't just signs. They were warnings, or perhaps tests. Then he found something else, an old dusty device. A data stone, ancient alien tech. When he touched it, a soft blue light glowed and a voice played. A translator. The voice said only one thing. The worthy survive. The unworthy are claimed. Cal stepped back. So that's what this was. A test. These alien women didn't kill for fun. They hunted to find something, or someone, worthy, like a trial. A rite of passage. Maybe for them, maybe for their prey. And now, they were testing him. Cal sat down and thought. He had survived longer than anyone else. That meant something. He had to stay ahead of them, keep showing them he wasn't weak. But he also had to figure out what they really wanted. He looked around the old temple and smiled slightly. If they were playing a game, then so could he. The forest was wet with morning mist. Soft fog curled around the trees like ghostly fingers, making it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. Cal moved slowly, stepping over roots and ducking under branches, always listening. Every sound mattered now. A twig snap, a breath, a whisper. It could be the difference between life and death. He had left the stone temple behind, but not the message it gave him. The worthy survive. The unworthy are claimed. The words repeated in his head as he walked. It wasn't just a warning. It was a challenge. These alien women were not hunting for food. They were searching for something. Cal didn't know what made someone worthy, but he was still alive. That had to count for something. As he reached a small stream, he knelt to drink. The water was cold and clear. He washed his face and looked at his reflection. Dirt and scratches covered his skin. His eyes looked tired, but sharper than before. He was learning, changing. Suddenly, something shiny caught his eye under the water. He reached in and pulled it out. It was a small metal cube, about the size of a matchbox. The sides were covered in symbols, glowing softly. It looked like alien tech. Cal turned it over in his hands. When he pressed the center, the cube clicked and opened, projecting a faint blue light into the air. A hologram appeared. It showed an image of a different species, thin, tall, with silver skin and wide black eyes. They were not human. Cal listened closely as a voice played in broken, robotic English. We came before you. We too were hunted. Not for harm, but for proof. The tribe seeks minds, not muscles. Strength is in ideas, not war. If you see this message, you are close. The message ended, and the cube dimmed. Cal stared at it for a moment. So he was right. This alien tribe wasn't just chasing bodies. They were watching, measuring, testing how clever their prey was. Maybe that's why the others disappeared. They ran, fought, or hid, but didn't think. Cal wasn't a fighter, but he was a thinker. He kept the cube and started moving again, more alert than ever. Around midday, he found an old trail, almost hidden by leaves and vines. It didn't look natural. The ground was smooth, like it had once been used often. He followed it carefully, using the trees for cover. After some time, he spotted movement ahead. He crouched behind a rock and peered through the bushes. There was a camp. Not human. Stone huts shaped like domes, bones hanging from poles, and glowing orbs floating in the air. Alien symbols were carved into everything. And then he saw them. 5 of the tall alien women, sitting in a circle around a fire. One of them was different. She wore more decorations, her hair was longer, and her eyes seemed to glow brighter. She looked like a leader. Then something strange happened. She stood and walked to the edge of the camp. Slowly, she raised her hand and pointed directly at where Cal was hiding. Cal froze. He hadn't made a sound. He hadn't moved. How did she know? She didn't come closer. She just spoke something in her language and turned away. The others didn't chase him. They didn't move. It was as if they wanted him to know he'd been seen. and still allowed to live. Cal backed away slowly, heart thumping. Once he was far enough, he sat behind a thick tree and tried to breathe. They were letting him watch. Why? He pulled out the cube again and replayed the message. The part that stuck with him was, "The tribe seeks minds, not muscles." Cal thought for a long time. If they wanted cleverness, then maybe escape wasn't about running or hiding. Maybe it was about solving something. He looked around and saw how the mist moved with the wind, revealing new paths and symbols carved into the bark of nearby trees. The triangle with a dot in the center, the same one from before. And now, a new one, a star-like shape with 4 points. He drew them on the dirt, trying to understand their meaning. That night, as he built a small fire with dry leaves, Cal made a choice. He would not run anymore. He would play their game, but on his own terms. Cal didn't sleep that night. His mind was racing with thoughts, patterns, and strange symbols. The mist outside his hiding place swirled quietly, like the forest itself was watching him. He had decided not to run anymore, but that didn't make things easier. He stayed low and quiet for most of the day, trying to understand the symbols he had seen. He carved them in the dirt again and again, trying different combinations, guessing what they could mean. Some looked like directions, others like warnings, and a few felt like keys to something bigger. As the sun set behind the tall alien trees, Cal moved toward the camp he had seen earlier. He didn't get too close this time, just near enough to observe. The alien women were still there, still calm, still watching. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind him. Cal spun around, but before he could react, something struck him on the side of the neck. A soft sting. His vision blurred. Then, darkness. He woke up inside a cave. It was dim, with glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The floor was smooth stone, and the air smelled of moss and spice. His wrists and ankles were tied with soft ropes made from some kind of vine. They weren't painful, but firm enough to keep him still. Cal looked around. He wasn't alone. One of the alien women sat across from him, watching. Her eyes were sharp, curious, but not angry. She had silver beads in her hair, and her face markings were different, more detailed. She tilted her head, then spoke in her language, soft and melodic, with clicking tones. Cal didn't understand, but her voice didn't sound threatening. He tried to speak. "Who are you? Why did you bring me here?" She didn't reply. Instead, she stood and walked slowly around him, studying him like a puzzle. She pointed to his chest, then his head, and said something again. Then she tapped her own forehead and smiled gently. Cal understood. She was curious, not just about him as a person, but about how he thought. She knelt beside him and untied his hands. Then she handed him something flat, a piece of stone with symbols carved into it, like a puzzle. Cal looked at it, studied it, and slowly moved the pieces. She watched with great interest. After a few minutes, he solved the puzzle. The pieces clicked into place and glowed softly. The alien woman looked pleased. She made a short sound, perhaps approval, and took the puzzle back. Then she stood and walked toward a wall with carvings. She pressed a spot, and a doorway opened. Without a word, she motioned for him to follow. Cal hesitated, then got up. His legs were stiff but working. He followed her through the doorway into a narrow hallway lit by glowing lines. They walked in silence until they reached a large room, round and open, with strange machines and old alien writings everywhere. This place wasn't just a home. It was a testing ground. The woman pointed to a table. On it were several puzzles, tools, and strange objects. She waved her hand over them, and then looked at him, waiting. Cal stepped forward. He understood now. This was the real test. Not of strength, but of the mind. He picked up a tool that looked like a long curved fork. Nearby, a block of crystal sat inside a metal frame. He used the fork to adjust something inside the crystal. It clicked. Then he rotated a nearby wheel. The machine lit up. The alien woman clapped once, softly. She was clearly impressed. More of the tribe entered the room. 4 others, tall and silent. They stood at the edges, watching closely. Cal realized he was the first human to make it this far, maybe the only one who hadn't just run or fought, but had understood. After some time, the leader from before, the one with the brightest markings, entered the room. She stared at Cal with interest, then spoke to the others. They all listened, then nodded. Then the leader stepped in front of Cal and said one word, clear, strong, and in English. Worthy. Cal's heart jumped. They had decided. He had passed something, even if he didn't fully understand it. But what now? The leader spoke again, this time in her own language. Then she pointed at Calendar and at the forest. Was she offering freedom? Cal looked around at the others. No one stopped him. No one held weapons. It was his choice now. He nodded slowly. As he turned toward the door, the first woman, the curious one, stepped closer. She handed him the puzzle stone again. A gift, or a message. He took it carefully, and then, without a word, he walked back into the misty forest. But now, something had changed. He was no longer just a man running from danger. He was the only one they let go. The days after Cal's release were unlike anything he had ever experienced. The forest felt different now, less like a prison and more like a place of opportunity. The alien women, the ones who had once hunted him, now seemed to be watching from the shadows, waiting. But there was something more to their eyes than hunger. Now it was curiosity. The puzzle the woman had given him was still with him, tucked into his belt. It was not just a token. It felt like a key to understanding the game they were playing. Every movement he made in the forest now had meaning. Every step, every breath, was part of the test. The mist that hung thick in the air seemed to whisper, urging him forward. On the 4th day after his release, he saw them again. The same women, but this time they were not just watching. They were waiting for him. Their eyes locked onto him from across a clearing. And this time, Cal felt no fear. Instead, he felt a strange calm. He had a purpose now. They had been watching him for so long, measuring his every move. And now, they had decided. The time had come. The woman with the brightest markings, the leader, stepped forward. Without speaking, she motioned for him to follow. The others remained still, silent like statues. Their faces were unreadable. Cal nodded and walked toward her. The leader led him through the thick trees, farther than he had ever gone before. The path twisted and turned, but she moved with the certainty of someone who knew every stone, every root. She stopped at the base of a massive tree, its trunk so wide it seemed to reach the sky. She turned to him, her expression serious. "This is the trial of fire," she said, her voice deep and powerful, though still strange to him. The translator in his pocket barely caught the meaning of the words. Only those who prove themselves worthy survive. Cal took a deep breath. This wasn't just a game anymore. This was real. The leader stepped aside, revealing a pit. Fire burned brightly in the center, crackling and hissing. The heat hit him immediately, making his skin tingle. Around the fire, there were more symbols carved into the ground and into the rocks. It was clear this was an ancient place, a sacred place. The women stood in a circle, their faces lit by the firelight. They all looked at him, waiting. The challenge was clear. He could either turn back and run, or face the trial. "Show us your worth," the leader said again, her voice calm but heavy with expectation. Cal stepped forward, his heart beating faster now. He wasn't sure what would happen, but he knew one thing. This wasn't about strength. This was about something else, something deeper. He studied the fire, its intense heat warming his face. The fire wasn't just a test of survival. It was a test of wit. What did they want him to do? Fight the fire? No, that would be foolish. Cal knelt beside the fire and looked at the rocks around it. He spotted a series of stones, each one with strange symbols carved into them. They were different from the markings on the trees, but there was something familiar about them. They formed a pattern, one that seemed to match the puzzle he had been carrying. Without thinking, he began moving the stones. He placed them in a circle around the fire, each one in its proper place. The heat of the fire didn't bother him. His hands moved quickly and sure, guided by instinct and memory. As he placed the final stone into place, something unexpected happened. The fire shifted. It swirled and then settled, calming down. The flames became steadier, their light softer. The stones he had placed seemed to glow faintly. The circle around the fire was complete. The women watched, their eyes wide with something close to awe. The leader stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Calendar for the first time. She nodded. "You have passed," she said, her voice tinged with respect. Cal stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. The trial of fire wasn't about fighting or survival. It was about understanding. Understanding the land. Understanding the creatures. Understanding the challenge itself. The women began to circle around him, their eyes no longer cold but warm with approval. He had earned their respect, not through violence or strength, but through his ability to solve the puzzle, to see what they had seen. For the first time, he felt like he truly understood their way. The tribe wasn't just hunting. They were testing, challenging. They were searching for something deeper in their prey. The mind, the spirit, the will to survive in a world that tested everything. The leader walked to him, her eyes serious. "You are worthy," she said again, but this time it felt different. There was more weight behind it. "You will not be claimed. You will be respected." And with that, the trial was over. The women stepped back, and Cal felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had not only survived, but he had proven something far more important, that humans, despite their flaws and their weaknesses, had something these hunters could not ignore. He wasn't just a survivor. He was worthy. The forest felt different now. Cal's body was sore, his hands and feet calloused from days of travel and work, but his mind was sharp. He had earned the tribe's respect, not through violence, but by using the tools they had set before him. And for the first time since landing on Ferocious 6, he felt a sense of belonging, a strange kind of peace. The women no longer hunted him. Instead, they watched, observing his every move, like he was a new species they had never encountered before. Their eyes were not filled with hunger anymore, but curiosity. They had seen his worth, and now they were waiting to see what he would do next. Cal didn't know what they wanted from him. What did they expect from someone like him? He wasn't a warrior, a leader, or a scientist. He was just a technician, someone who had gotten lost on an unknown planet. But now he had become something more. The leader, the one with the brightest markings, approached him one evening. She was silent, her face unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, something different from before. Cal stood up slowly as she came closer. Her presence had a weight to it, like the very air changed when she was near. She spoke, her voice calm and firm. "You have proven yourself human, more than any others before you, but there is still one thing you do not understand." Cal frowned. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. "You understand the tests. You understand the trials, but you do not understand the truth. You do not understand what you have earned." Cal tilted his head. "Then explain it to me." The leader reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out something small, a stone, smooth and dark. She held it in front of him. There were no markings on it, no symbols. It was just a plain stone, but Cal felt an odd energy coming from it, like it was more than it appeared. "This," she said, "is what we give to the worthy." The stone is a symbol, a promise. "A promise," Cal repeated, confused. "Yes," the leader continued, her voice softening slightly. We are not the only ones who hunt. Others from across the stars come to this world, seeking the same thing we do, strength. They seek to conquer this place, to claim it as their own. And they will come for you. For us. Cal's heart skipped a beat. He had heard rumors, stories from the explorers who had gone missing, that the planet was a battleground for powerful beings. But he hadn't truly understood what that meant. The leader's gaze hardened. You are the first to show that humanity is more than just another weak species. You have earned our respect. But there is no escaping the war that is coming. You will need allies. Cal took a step back. What do you want from me? The leader's voice grew colder. You will help us. You will help us prepare for the battle. And in exchange, we will protect you. All of you. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Protect him. From what? What did they know that he didn't? You want me to fight? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. No, she replied sharply. We want you to survive. We will teach you how to fight if necessary. But that is not the point. The point is this. You have the power to unite us. You, the human. The one who sees things differently. Cal thought about the trials, the puzzles, the stones, the symbols. The tribe had tested his intelligence, his ability to solve problems, to think quickly and creatively. They had seen something in him that they hadn't seen in any other human, but he didn't know if that was enough to survive whatever was coming. The leader held out the stone again. Take this, she said. It is a symbol of your new role. The promise that we will stand by you, that you will be one of us, in a way. But only if you accept. Cal hesitated. The weight of the stone in his hand was undeniable, but so was the weight of the decision. Accepting meant more than just survival. It meant joining something bigger than himself. It meant trusting these women who had once hunted him. Could he really trust them? But he had already proven he could survive here. He had already shown that he could think his way out of danger. Maybe this was the next step. Maybe this was his only chance to understand the truth about this world. He looked at the leader and nodded. I accept. The leader smiled, a rare, almost imperceptible gesture. Good. Then we are bound together. As the leader turned and walked away, Cal's mind raced. The fire that had once been a trial now seemed like a distant memory. He had crossed a line. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was on the path to something greater, something more than just survival. He glanced down at the stone in his hand. It was small, but it carried the weight of a new beginning. The battle for Ferocious 6 had begun. The days after Cal accepted the stone were filled with strange new lessons. The tribe had always been watchful, but now they were more focused on him than ever before. He had become part of something larger, something he still didn't fully understand. The women no longer saw him as prey, but as a member of their tribe, though he knew he wasn't fully one of them yet. They had made him a promise, but promises weren't always enough to survive what was coming. He spent his days in the forest, training, learning, and working alongside the women. They taught him the ways of the land, how to track, how to use the weapons they crafted from the trees and stones, and how to move quietly like they did. He learned their language bit by bit, enough to understand the basics, enough to communicate his thoughts and understand theirs. But every time he looked up at the sky, the weight of the promise they had made him hung over him. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was a symbol, a bridge between his people and theirs. The stone in his pocket reminded him of that every day. One afternoon, as he was gathering supplies, he noticed something in the distance. Movement. It was subtle at first, just a flicker between the trees. Then he saw it clearly, another ship, like the one that had brought him here. It hovered just above the treetops, its engines humming faintly. His heart raced. He thought of the stories about explorers who never returned. What if this ship wasn't just another failed expedition? What if it was something more dangerous, something that was coming to claim the planet? The leader had warned him that others would come. The time for survival was near, and Cal had to be ready. Without a moment's hesitation, he turned and ran back toward the tribe's camp. He needed to warn them, but as he ran through the trees, he realized something. The tribe was ready. They had always been ready. When he reached the clearing, the women were already preparing. The weapons were out, their faces calm but serious. They knew. Somehow, they had known the moment the ship arrived. The leader, standing at the center of the camp, turned to him as he approached. Her eyes were steady, but there was something else in them now, something like trust. "You were right to come," she said simply. "The others are here." Cal took a deep breath and nodded. "We need to be ready." The leader handed him a weapon, an ornate bow, strong and flexible, with a string made from the toughest material he had ever seen. "Use this," she said. "It is a weapon for those who are worthy. You have proven yourself worthy." Cal took the bow, feeling its weight in his hands. It was unlike anything he had ever held before, both delicate and powerful. He wasn't sure if he could wield it well, but there was no time to hesitate. The leader motioned for him to follow. "Come, we will show them that we do not yield." As they moved toward the edge of the camp, the other women followed silently, spreading out into positions. They didn't speak much. There was no need. The forest had prepared them for this moment. The battle wasn't just for survival, it was for their way of life. The ship had landed now, and figures were emerging. They were humanoid, but larger, their movements stiff and robotic. Cal had seen them in the old stories. These were the invaders, the ones who had come before, who had sought to take the planet for themselves. But the tribe wasn't afraid. As the invaders approached, the leader stepped forward. She raised her hand, and the women around her followed suit. There was a moment of silence. Then, without warning, they attacked. The battle was fast, brutal, and precise. The women moved with grace and speed, using their environment to their advantage. They didn't rush in blindly. They thought, adapted, and struck with deadly precision. Cal, following their lead, fired the bow. The string hummed as it shot through the air, striking one of the invaders with a perfect hit. It wasn't just a battle of strength, it was a battle of intelligence, and the tribe had mastered it. The invaders fought back, but they were no match for the tribe's tactics. They were stronger, yes, but they were not used to being outwitted. They were used to dominating, not to thinking their way through a fight. After what felt like hours, the battle ended. The invaders were defeated, their bodies lying in the clearing. The women of the tribe stood tall, breathing heavily but victorious. And in the center, Cal stood with them, not as an outsider, but as part of something larger. The leader turned to him once the dust settled. "You were right," she said quietly. "You are one of us now." Cal looked around at the women, strong, fierce, and intelligent. He had started as a man lost on a dangerous planet, but now he was part of a tribe that had shown him what true strength was. Not just in muscles or weapons, but in the mind, in the will to survive, and the wisdom to adapt. The battle had been won, but the future, he realized, was still uncertain. There would be other invaders, other challenges, but now he was no longer just a human on a foreign world. He was part of a tribe that understood the true meaning of strength. And for the first time, he felt like he had truly found his place.